Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. I am so thrilled to have you here. Today, we are setting out to objectively unpack a recent, highly detailed 30-minute political Q&A with One Nation leader Pauline Hanson. We're going to break down exactly what the party is proposing. We're leaving the political rhetoric at the door, and we are focusing strictly on the actual policies they're bringing to the table.
Now, you might be wondering, why does this matter right now? Well, just take a look at these recent News 24 and YouGov polling numbers. While Labor sits at 28%, One Nation is capturing a massive 25% of the vote. That puts them ahead of the Liberal Party at 22% and the Greens at 13%. Capturing a quarter of the electorate, that makes this platform a major force in the current Australian political landscape, and one that absolutely demands a closer look.
Okay, let's dive into this. We're going to break down 6 key areas today: the platform, economics and immigration, bureaucracy and spending, identity and culture, defense and demographics, and finally, the electoral system.
All right, first up, Section 1, the One Nation platform and their first 100 days. Basically, what exactly would they do immediately if they held the balance of power?
Hanson lays out 5 core actions right off the bat to kickstart productivity. Her strategy directly links a drastic cut in immigration with fixing housing shortages. From there, it is all about aggressive deregulation. We're talking cutting overall government spending, completely scrapping the climate change department, and slashing the red and green tape that she claims is literally suffocating the construction and mining industries.
So let's move right along to Section 2, economics, housing, and immigration, and look a bit closer at how they connect those dots. To alleviate the massive demand for housing, Hanson proposes an annual immigration cap of roughly 130,000 people. Now, she emphasizes this isn't a total freeze, right? The cap is designed to still allow for essential business personnel and vital medical roles like doctors and nurses to enter the country, while bringing down that overall population pressure on the housing market. Now, what's really fascinating here is the specific data Hanson uses to back this up. If we look at the 2022 to 2023 migration data, there were 739,000 total arrivals. But she points out that only a fraction of those, about 51,650, were actually classified as skilled migrants. And of those, a mere 1,800 were in the construction industry. Hanson argues this data is proof that high migration levels just aren't bringing in the builders we actually need to fix the housing crisis.
But it's not just immigration. One Nation points to taxation as a massive hurdle to home ownership. Hanson claims that 40% to 44% of the costs of building a new home currently just goes to various taxes. That is a huge chunk. Their proposed solution? Scrap the GST entirely on all building materials for homes under $1 million. And beyond housing, she points to the daily squeeze on families, calling for a full investigation into the childcare sector. She's questioning why taxpayers are footing a $16 billion annual bill when parents are still getting absolutely crushed by daily fees.
This heavy focus on wasted tax dollars brings us neatly to Section 3, slashing bureaucracy and spending. One Nation identifies 3 primary targets that they view as severely bloated. First, the NDIS, where they want to aggressively weed out unregistered providers and systemic waste. Second, Aboriginal corporations, where they advocate for a shift away from what they view as race-based treatment, moving instead toward individual needs-based funding. And finally, pulling out of the Paris Agreement entirely, aiming to eliminate the billions tied up in green subsidies and transmission lines.
To really put the scale of the spending issue into perspective, Hanson highlights the National Disability Insurance Scheme, the NDIS, which currently costs a staggering $52 billion a year. She warns that on its current trajectory, that number could balloon to $100 billion by 2032. Her argument here is that the system is plagued by scammers and unregistered providers charging just exorbitant hourly rates, and reining this in is absolutely crucial for the national budget.
And this brilliantly illustrates the party's broader critique of government bureaucracy. Hanson shares this personal anecdote about outfitting a stainless steel fish and chip van, only to be told by local authorities that she wasn't allowed to cut a lettuce inside it without extra compliance. She uses this story to represent the crushing weight of red tape. She cites examples like cafeterias needing 36 different licenses just to open their doors. She also heavily criticizes same job, same pay laws, arguing they basically strip small businesses of their ability to reward experienced, hardworking staff.
Okay, moving to Section 4, National Identity and Culture. Because beyond economics and red tape, the foundation of this platform rests heavily on cultural ideology.
On cultural issues, One Nation takes a very firm, unyielding stance. The party fiercely opposes Section 18C of the Racial Discrimination Act, arguing it stifles freedom of opinion and speech. They also oppose welcome-to-country practices in government and schools and actively push back against the whole concept of multiculturalism. Instead, the party advocates for what they describe as a unified monoculture, a culture based on shared values, national pride, and a renewed focus on teaching traditional Australian history in schools.
And this cultural messaging, it's definitely tapping into a specific sentiment within the electorate. Polling data shows that 46% of Australians actually feel multiculturalism is becoming problematic for social cohesion. Hanson echoes this statistic a lot in her platform. She specifically cites radical Islam, which she describes as a political ideology rather than just a religion, as being fundamentally incompatible with Australian culture and values, pointing to events like those at the Sydney Opera House as evidence of fracturing social cohesion.
This focus on national values extends directly into Section 5, Defense, Seniors and Apprentices.
On the defense front, Hanson states a clear goal: steadily increase defense spending to 3.5% of the GDP. She argues this is absolutely necessary, not just for military capability in a complex world, but to improve conditions and retention among currently disillusioned military personnel and veterans who feel totally unsupported by the current system.
Let's move on and see how this push for retention builds into their economic incentives for key demographics. For seniors and veterans, they propose uncapped working hours without losing pension benefits or healthcare cards. For self-funded retirees, a $35,000 tax-free threshold. And to boost trades, they want to heavily subsidize apprentice wages, paying 75% of a first year's wage, 50% of the second, and 25% of the third. And here's the catch. This is specifically mandated for rural and regional areas, a move literally designed to keep young people in country towns.
But, to implement any of these policies, a party needs legislative power. Which brings us to our final section, the electoral system.
Now, you might assume a minor party would want a first-past-the-post system, right? Actually, scratch that. Hanson opposes it. She argues that first-past-the-post allows candidates to win with remarkably low vote shares if the field is crowded. Instead, she strongly supports optional preferential voting. That's where voters aren't forced to number every single box, but can simply vote for 1, 2, or 3 candidates based on their true preferences. She believes the focus should be on educating voters about how preference flows actually work, rather than relying on party how-to-vote cards.
So, what does this all mean? Ultimately, the One Nation platform is a highly detailed mix of aggressive spending cuts, targeted demographic incentives, and a very strong push for a unified monoculture. Whether you agree with these policies or fiercely oppose them, sitting at 25% on the polls means these ideas are resonating with a huge chunk of voters. So the crucial point I want to leave you with is this. If enacted, how would these targeted policy pillars fundamentally reshape the Australian political and cultural landscape? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep learning.